We have big progress with SpaceX's Starship, as they prepare to launch the first ever Block 2 vehicle. SpaceX's Mechazilla system are the massive robotic arms on the orbital launch tower designed to catch and support Starship and Super Heavy during launches and landings. While China's methodical approach with the Long March 12 contrasts SpaceX's ambitious and experimental Starship program. While LM-12 will likely be a reliable and advanced addition to the Long March family, Starship aims to redefine space logistics entirely. Down at Starbase, the pace has been a little bit more chill as we cool down in the aftermath of Starship Flight 6. We did see some rather peculiar goings-on at the launch pad, though. A couple of antennas were spotted strapped to one of the chopstick catch arms, for reasons that are a bit unclear. Furthermore, later in the week, the chopsticks were raised to full height, with these still attached. What do you think they were testing here? We know that during Flight 6, communications were temporarily lost between Super Heavy and the tower. Here's hoping NASA and SpaceX share some of this spectacular footage with the public. It's bound to be a jaw-dropping display of engineering in action. Turning our attention to Booster 14, the workhorse for Flight 7, we find yet another layer of excitement. While it remains a Block 1 Super Heavy booster, it has undergone minor upgrades to improve its chances of a successful Mechazilla catch. One of my favorite shots that came from the 6th flight of Starship is this brilliant footage of Ship 31 performing engine relight, flip and splash down in the Indian Ocean, marking the first daytime landing of a Starship from space, as well as the presumed final ever flight of Starship Block 1, with Flight 7 expected to use Ship 33, the first Block 2 ship, as its upper stage. Which means that things are not looking too peachy for Ship 32, which remains in the rocket garden half-cloud with its outdated heat shield and no aft flaps. It's almost certainly slated for the scrap heap at some point in the near future. SpaceX isn't exactly sentimental when it comes to their prototype vehicles. RIP SN-15, never forget. But anyway, even though Flight 7 will be the first time we see a Block 2 ship in flight, we sadly won't get a view like this one, as the landing time will once again be during the night. According to FAA filings, Flight 7 is scheduled for launch in the early morning of the 11th of January, so that a NASA aircraft can film the Starship re-entry with thermal cameras fitted to a Gulfstream 5, during peak re-entry heating as it flies over the Indian Ocean. The landing needs to take place at night for the best imaging conditions, and the aircraft will need to operate with both its interior and exterior lights turned off. Something that's obviously pretty risky, but Australia's Civil Aviation Safety Authority has expressed its readiness to allow this to take place. I really hope NASA or SpaceX shares some of the aerial footage publicly, as that'll be so cool to see. The first stage booster for Flight 7 is still expected to be Booster 14, a Block 1 Super Heavy. Currently, the Super Heavy hasn't had a Block 2 version developed. If all goes to plan, then we will hopefully see SpaceX attempt to catch the booster using Mechazilla, like they successfully did with Booster 12 on Flight Test 5. There's a chance that we won't, though, and the booster instead aborts the catch attempt and splashes down in the Gulf of Mexico, like Booster 13 on Flight 6, which we later learned was due to a loss of comms with the tower's computer. Some new footage has been leaked, showing Booster 13 in the waters. If Booster 14 manages to stick the landing, it will be a monumental achievement for SpaceX, further validating their vision of rapid rocket reusability. The Mechazilla system itself is a marvel of engineering. Its chopstick arms are designed to extend, grab the descending booster midair, and gently guide it back onto the launch mount. This eliminates the need for drone ships and dramatically shortens the turnaround time between launches. But with such a high degree of complexity, there's always the potential for something to go wrong. If communication systems falter again, Booster 14 could end up making another splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico. In this video, we're diving into China's groundbreaking launch of the Long March 12 rocket. On November 30, 2024, China launched the Long March 12 rocket from the Hainan Commercial Space Launch Site. This marked a big step for China's space industry, because it was the first mission from the country's first commercial spaceport. The rocket successfully placed 2 experimental satellites into orbit, showing China's growing capability to handle complex space missions. The Long March 12 is not just another rocket. Compared to SpaceX's Starship, which is built to eventually take people to Mars, the Long March 12 is designed for different tasks, like launching satellites into low Earth orbit, while Starship is a fully reusable rocket meant to revolutionize space travel by bringing down costs. The Long March 12 focuses on carrying heavy payloads quickly and efficiently, even though it isn't reusable yet. The Long March 12 is more comparable to rockets like Falcon 9, but with its own unique features. The Long March 12 stands 62 meters tall, which is shorter than Starship's towering 120 meters, but its payload capacity is impressive. It can carry at least 10 tons to low Earth orbit and 6 tons to Sun-synchronous orbit. That's quite a feat, though it's still far from the Falcon Heavy, which can take up to 64 tons to low Earth orbit. However, the Long March 12 is not built for the same purposes. A significant design choice for the Long March 12 is that it doesn't use boosters, unlike many rockets of its size. It relies entirely on its single-core structure, which reduces complexity and costs. But this simplicity comes with challenges. For instance, a boosterless rocket like this can wobble during its flight, making it harder to control. Engineers tackled this by creating a sleeker, more stable design. By comparison, Starship uses multiple engines and a massive booster stage called Super Heavy to generate the thrust needed for its missions. The engines on the Long March 12 are also worth mentioning. It uses liquid oxygen and kerosene as propellants, much like the engines on Falcon 9. These are cheaper and more environmentally friendly than older fuels like hydrazine. The first stage has 4 engines that generate enough thrust to lift the rocket and its heavy payload. While these engines are powerful, they're no match for Starship's Raptor engines, which are designed to produce massive thrust and handle the challenges of deep space missions. One of the standout features of the Long March 12 is its customizable payload fairings. The fairing is the protective cover that shields the satellites during the rocket's journey through the atmosphere. The Long March 12 offers 2 sizes, 4.2 meters and 5.2 meters in diameter. This flexibility allows it to carry different types of payloads. SpaceX does something similar with its Falcon 9, which frequently carries batches of Starlink satellites. Unlike SpaceX, which focuses heavily on reusable rockets to cut costs, China's Long March 12 is about rapid deployment of satellites at a lower cost. This makes it an important tool for building satellite constellations, which are becoming a big part of the space industry. Projects like Starlink from SpaceX or OneWeb from other companies require frequent launches to place hundreds, even thousands, of satellites into orbit. The Long March 12 is China's answer to this demand. While it doesn't have the reusable technology of Falcon 9 or Starship, it compensates with simpler and faster operations. China has made its ambitions in space crystal clear. They plan to catch up to SpaceX, and do so very soon. Their space program has been moving at an insane pace. But with this rapid development has come a string of incidents, some of them tragic, and others outright catastrophic. In April 2023, a Long March 6A rocket encountered a malfunction shortly after liftoff, resulting in the loss of a commercial satellite payload. This was followed by another setback in July 2024, when a Geelong 3 rocket, a new commercial model, failed during its second launch due to a propulsion issue, destroying the satellite it was carrying. But perhaps the most dramatic failure in recent memory was China's attempt at landing a reusable rocket similar to SpaceX's Falcon 9. In October 2024, a test of their reusable rocket ended in disaster. The rocket, designed to mimic Falcon 9's vertical landing capability, exploded on the landing pad. After what initially seemed like a smooth descent, the failure was attributed to a last-second issue with its landing legs, which buckled under the weight of the rocket. China plans to become the undisputed leader in space exploration by 2030. One of their most talked about plans is the colonization of the moon. China envisions establishing a permanent lunar base by the early 2030s. But it doesn't stop there. China also aims to dominate the low Earth orbit economy, a sector currently led by SpaceX with its Starlink constellation. By 2030, China plans to deploy its own mega constellation of satellites, which will provide global internet coverage and rival SpaceX's Starlink in both scale and functionality. In terms of Mars exploration, China is advancing rapidly as well. Following the success of their Tianwen-1 mission, which landed the Shenzhou rover on Mars in 2021, they've announced plans for a Mars sample return mission by 2028. They're also exploring the possibility of sending crewed missions to Mars in the next 2 decades. And that's about it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and that's all for today's update. If you enjoyed watching and found it useful, please make sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. And if you want to support our channel and if you want to be up to date, you can become an exclusive member, so click on our perks through the link in the description below. Thanks to watching and see you next time.